Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
Find a living in fisheries. The UAS Fisheries Technology Program offers online study from anywhere in Alaska, plus labs and workshops in many Alaska towns.
Is most likely a chunk.
Find your living without leaving where you are. Fisheries Technology from UAS.
The National Weather Service.
Hello again, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us here for Friday's show. A fair amount of snow falling up over the northern panhandle, that tapering off this morning, but around a foot falling there in the greater Haines area, and then up along the Klondike Highway around 5 inches, and Skagway just picking up an inch. And as far as advisories go, there's a winter weather advisory out for the Kobuk Valley, and that's for areas north of Ambler for winds out of the east-northeast gusting to 45 miles per hour, and that'll create some blowing snow, which will reduce visibilities down to around a half mile or less at times through tonight. And then there's a wind chill advisory out for the western Arctic coast. 15 to 25 mile per hour winds, dropping the wind chills down to 55 below zero at times, and that's good through tomorrow afternoon, or for tonight through tomorrow afternoon. Satellite imagery yesterday showed low pressure here sliding northwest and then pulling back to the west a couple of centers, one there south of the Kenai Peninsula and then another one there for the west, and the moisture there coming into the south and southeast interior kind of dissipating here. Break down to the south and some variable clouds up to the north, and we had a system out here pushing into the western and then central Aleutians. Today that front's really weakened here, kind of a narrow band there, lifting northward right across the Alaska Peninsula, but precipitation pretty sparse with that, and not too much in the way of anything falling around the Pribilofs today. I had some snow showers over the Aleutians, and in the Gulf of Alaska you can see still kind of a counterclockwise flow there, low center roughly in about this position, and that spinning some showers in over the southeast coast. Most of the moisture now shifting up into northwest Canada, and just some areas of clouds and flurries here over the southeast interior areas. The main rain area here along the North Gulf Coast for the daytime hours today, and that ranged from about a half an inch falling in Yakutat, otherwise back to the west, Prince William Sound, on down to Kodiak Island, much lighter amounts, generally nothing more than a tenth of an inch, and then over the southeast coast of this trough, some showers today, and again daytime rainfall amounts here for the last 12 hours, again for today, range from about a 0.02 of an inch at Juneau to around a 1/3 of an inch down at Metlakatla. Otherwise, flow pulling a little bit of moisture in some areas of flurries in over the southeast interior, the Alaska Range, even the upper Tanana Valley to about Eagle, with but amounts quite light here. Pretty breezy up over the interior areas. Indian Mountain seeing gusts over 40 miles an hour today. And again, about 15 to 25 miles per hour with, again, the higher gusts here over the northwest areas. And fairly breezy, but not too bad there along the southeast coast. 10 to 20 miles an hour for those wind speeds, and pretty light wind conditions here over the southwest interior. And Bristol Bay, low pressure here, keeping some scattered rain and snow showers in across Kodiak Island. Of course, that circulation pulling that moisture in the form of showery conditions, light showers into Prince William Sound. Nothing here for Cook Inlet. Back to the Kuskokwim Valley, dry. Much of the western interior precipitation free today with varying amounts of clouds. Were a few flurries there along the eastern Arctic coast and some fog over to about Barrow, and that's about it. Had some clear skies here over the north slope. Not allowed temperatures to stay on the cold side today. Otherwise out here, a couple of troughs bringing some scattered snow showers, mostly south and west of the permafrost. Again, that old frontal boundary right through here with some isolated showers into the Alaska Peninsula. Winds pretty light here, especially this time of year across the Aleutians and the southern Bering Sea. Scattered rain and snow showers, Adak and Atka on out towards Shimia. And for tonight, that pattern doesn't change a whole lot out there. Just some widely scattered snow showers, mostly low centers south of the chain there, but close enough here to bring some moisture into the western Aleutians. Should be a dry night tonight for the Alaska Peninsula, along with light wind conditions. Same thing for the Yukon and Kuskokwim Delta. East-northeasterlies maybe 10 to 20 miles an hour or less, gradually increasing here. Again, we have the winter weather advisory for the Kobuk Valley up to the west there. Again, 15 to 25 to 30 miles an hour, possible gusts of 45 miles per hour over the higher elevations. And we have a possible narrow band of moisture here. Just flurries, very light. Again, nothing significant falling at all from Eagle down along the western Alaska Range. And then another trough lifting north to the coast here will keep showers in across Prince William Sound, eastward to Yakutat, and down along the coast of the Panhandle. Then a break behind that. The next system down here to the south will be lifting northward, and tomorrow afternoon will bring an increase in the wind and rain to Kodiak Island and the southern coast of the Alaska Peninsula. Bristol Bay should be dry, maybe some clearing there from roughly about King Salmon down to Port Hayden and those areas. Otherwise, just some scattered showers now, mostly cloudy skies for the North Gulf Coast. A few showers lingering there over the Panhandle as well. And that trough moving northward, not much weather associated with it, just clouds, and that's about it. A little bit of moisture in the form of flurries. Again, nothing significant or accumulated at all up there over the northeast interior. And staying a little breezy, but not too bad here over the northwest areas. Wind chill advisory again through tomorrow afternoon there for the western Arctic coast as those winds continue to gust up to 25 miles per hour. And again, the wind chills to about 55 below. Patchy fog on the eastern Arctic coast. A little more enhanced area showers possible here from the Cobourg Mountains up into the southwest interior. And some flurries out here over the Bering Sea, more like widely scattered snow showers that possibly could hit the permafrost. But again, for the Alaska Peninsula, scattered rain and snow showers from there all the way out to Shimia. Again, the main storminess staying to the south here. Could get a little breezy here for Kodiak Island with this system, but nothing very strong at all. And then looking ahead to the second day of the weekend, we've got, again, some lingering showers here along the southeast coast. Not too bad, a little breezy over the inside water areas there. And then that front moves north to the coast, bringing rain and snow in tomorrow night. And then that kind of splits into a couple of troughs. First surge of moisture bringing some light snow up to the Alaska Range, back down to the southwest, roughly to about Togiak Bay. In that area, another trough keeping it showery again along the North Gulf Coast, on down to Kodiak Island. Dry, variable clouds for Cook Inlet into the Matanuska and Susitna Valley areas. Chances of snow showers over the Copper River Basin areas, but for the Tanana Valley, all the way up to the eastern Arctic coast, very big cloudy and dry conditions with light winds. Picking the winds up a little bit here over the through the Bering Strait to St. Lawrence Island with this trough axis lined up right along the coast there. Could be some light snow and areas of fog from the Yukon Delta across the Seward Peninsula up into the Noatak Valley, western Arctic coast to roughly possibly Barrow or Atasuk. But again, even this area will see pretty light snowfall amounts in what does fall. Scattered showers for the Alaska Peninsula and again for Kodiak Island. And also the eastern Aleutians, widely scattered isolated showers with possible clearing there for the central areas. Again, light winds out in this area. And for the Aleutians, the next big storm just edging its way onto the chart and really will not be in effect here until possibly late Sunday night or Monday. And then for temperatures along the southeast coast today, all in the 40s, except Skagway at 35 this afternoon. Yakutat topped out at about 39 degrees. And then both Petersburg and Metlakatla came in with 45, warm spot in the state today, 44 at Cordova, 27 in Valdez. That same temperature matched also at Kenai with 33 in Homer, 30s there for Kodiak Island. Copper River Basin and Gulkana had 0, 7 above at Northway. 4 above at Fairbanks, and then back down to 6 below up at Fort Yukon. In the Brooks Range there, Arctic Village had 18 below. Cold spot in the clear skies, Umiat Airfield this afternoon, 31 below zero, and anywhere from 15 to 25 below up along the Arctic coast, with a little milder here back to the over the northwest areas. That's 19 below at Deering. Contrast that with 10 degrees warmer there at Kotzebue with 9 below, 8 above at Nome, and 7 degrees out at Savunga. Otherwise, McGrath had 0. Ambler 13 below, with St. Michael at 8, 3 degrees at Amonic, and 6 at Bethel, while Macoriac on Nunivak Island came in with 10. 31 both at St. George and St. Paul today, and upper 30s for the Central Aleutians, 35 out at Shimia, and mid-30s here for the Fox Islands, with upper 20s to mid-30s here along the Alaska Peninsula, with Sand Point at 37, one of the warmer locations. Cooling off into the teens up over Bristol Bay. For the lows tonight, 8 to 12 forecast low there for Bristol Bay. Otherwise, 20s to lower 30s for the peninsula. Mid-30s the lows for the Aleutians, and below 0 here you can see the 0-degree isotherm roughly running along the Alaska Range and southward into about Togiak Bay, with temperatures near or a little below 0 across the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta. And again, as cold as 30, 35 below in areas on the North Slope, otherwise 5 to 15 below elsewhere. For the highs, mid-30s to lower 40s for the southeast coast, about like today, and near 40 along the North Gulf Coast, otherwise lower 30s and over south central Alaska, chillier over the Copper River Basin. 25 to 35 down across Bristol Bay, 30s for the Alaska Peninsula, upper 30s for the Aleutians. Chillier conditions up along the Yukon Delta coast to the northern Bering Sea, single numbers there, and inland below 0 conditions, upper Yukon Valley, the Brooks Range to the Arctic coast. Flying weather, marginal VFR in the forecast for much of the Panhandle tomorrow from Dixon Entrance, and then getting some IFR conditions, Yakutat along the North Gulf Coast, southern Prince William Sound into the Kenai Peninsula, but VFR for Cook Inlet and a good portion of interior Alaska as well. And then you get into some IFR for the Arctic coast and IFR for St. Lawrence Island here, covering much of the eastern Bering Sea. And some of that will extend into Togiak Bay a little bit. And then that next system coming northward, visibilities and ceilings will be lowering throughout the afternoon across Kodiak Island from south to north. And some possible IFR there on the southern coast of the Alaska Peninsula and the south side of the Fox Islands. Passes, Anatuvik will be open tomorrow. VFR conditions also for Adigan, and for Lake Clark and Merrill, VFR, possible marginal VFR in both approaches there on both eastern approaches. Same forecast for Rainy, generally VFR, possible marginal stuff on the east side, and windy. Occasional marginal VFR, again possible, not guaranteed there in the southern entrance, otherwise looking VFR. Isabel, that same forecast, lower conditions will be found on the southern entrance of both Isabel and Mentasta. And for Tanita, VFR, pretty good chance of seeing some marginal VFR in the eastern approach of that pass. And for Portage, IFR, Chilkoot and White, marginal. Freezing levels at the surface here, just near or south of the Pribilofs, in across the Alaska Peninsula and Aleutian Range, following the coastline the remainder of the way around, 2,000 feet up along the North Gulf Coast and 4,000 feet in toward Dixon Entrance. Icing possibilities, again with this batch of moisture slipping northward, that'll be bearing down to Kodiak Island late tomorrow afternoon, but definitely by tomorrow evening, that whole area lifting northward into the North Gulf Coast tomorrow night. Otherwise, kind of some leftover moisture here for possible areas of icing, light rime or mixed icing along the North Gulf Coast into southern Cook Inlet, another batch out here over the southwest interior, and some more stuff way out to the west. Upper level wind flow chart showing again the jet well to the south here of the state, actually splitting right in this area of the weaker branch coming up to the northeastern Gulf Coast. Couple of upper centers, one there west of Kodiak Island, another one there up over the northwest interior. 9,000 foot wind showing southeasterlies 30 to 40 knots here across the Gulf of Alaska, strongest near Kodiak Island, lighter over toward the Panhandle, and Variable winds, mostly from the easterly direction, southeast here for the southeast interior, east-northeast up over the northwest areas, 30 to 40 knots along the Arctic coast, otherwise 15 to 25 over the interior. And that same wind pattern out across the Bering Sea with 20-knot winds for the Aleutians. 3,000 feet shows easterlies 15 to 30 knots here across the Aleutians. A little tighter here around that low center southwest of Kodiak, up to 40 knots into the island there, 25 for Bristol Bay. 10 to 25 knots, mainly out of the east here through the interior, stronger along the Arctic coast, and then southeast flow here over the eastern Gulf of Alaska, up to 45 knots, and then lightening up as you get over toward this panhandle. Turbulence-wise, mostly below 4,000 feet here, southern Cook Inlet, Kenai Peninsula, Kodiak Island, and Bristol Bay. Another batch here from St. Lawrence Island to the Bering Strait, and then areas of the Arctic coast could get a little bumpy tomorrow, mainly below about 4,000 feet. And after the break, I'll be back with a look at the marine forecasts.
Good evening, I'm Harry Keeling, and on behalf of the Alaskan Aviation Safety Foundation and Alaska Public Media, welcome back to Hangar Flying. We've really been fortunate the past couple of sessions that we've had Keith early on. Keith's a very experienced military and corporate and FedEx, now FedEx captain pilot, who's got some real lessons to share with us. And tonight I've asked him back to tell us a couple stories I think you'll appreciate. Keith, welcome back.
Well, thanks for having me back.
Where do you want to start?
You're running the show, so.
How about Ketchikan?
Ketchikan. I spoke to you about Ketchikan because it brought up the example of the pressures that are put on pilots in all of the levels of aviation where you're paid to do a job. You can be placed under undue pressure by supervision to accomplish a job that in your own judgment is not a good call. But you are ultimately responsible and not your supervisor for the sequence of events. So one such event for me, I was ferrying an airplane from Tucson back to Fairbanks. It was an A-10, single-seat airplane. And the weather up and down the Alaska coast was pretty bad. It was horizontal rain, low ceilings, heavy rainfall, and this was from Ketchikan all the way up to Haines. And I was asked to get that airplane back in time to get on the next day's schedule, and having watched the weather all day long and not improving and knowing what the weather conditions were at Ketchikan and the alternates of Sitka and Juneau, I didn't think it was such a good idea. That was better to wait. But my supervisor asked me to press forward and to bring the airplane home. So I made that flight. When I got to overhead Ketchikan, Anchorage Center at 18,000 feet as I'm descending down said radar service terminated, which meant I was on my own for navigation and flying this approach. And the winds were very strong from the ocean, from the west. And what I now pay very careful attention to was on the approach plate it said, "Caution, strong crosswinds may lead to severe turbulence." And so I flew the penetration down and intercepted a localizer final. And on that final approach, the A-10 was bucking so hard from that turbulence that my eyeballs literally would not cage inside my skull. Every time it would hit that strong turbulence, the airplane would go bang, bang, bang. And each time it did, my eyeballs did the same thing, and I could not retain focus on the instruments. I was looking at focused instruments in between turbulence bucks. I flew the approach down, of course with no autopilot, down to a 200-foot minimum, and at the moment that I was ready to go around, I saw the threshold lights for the runway Ketchikan, which are right on the water. I also saw you know, the surging water, the caps, the winds blowing the caps on the water. Landed, got off the runway, put the airplane to bed in a pouring rain, left the island on ferry, got the last ferry to the mainland, and got the last room in the hotel, soaking wet. And when I got back to Fairbanks, I had a few words with my supervisor about putting me in that compromising situation.
Wow, there but for the grace of God. Thank you for sharing that. One more, we got about 2 minutes left. I want you to tell the story about, you mentioned complacency last time.
Yes.
And you had an experience with complacency, didn't you?
Well, you do the same flight over and over and over again, and you think it's just another flight. Well, I was with F5 Squadron. We were in Cold Lake, Canada, supporting the fighter weapons school for the Canadian F-18 Squadron there. And on this particular day, I was leading a two-ship and was going to meet another two-ship of F-18s, and we're going to do air combat maneuvering, 2 against 2. Well, when we got up to the airspace, we found that the clouds were layered all the way up to 30,000 feet, which is pretty high for this sort of engagement. So in the air, we briefed up we would modify the mission. It was going to be intercepts only, no full-up maneuvering. And so we set up at our respective points, and we're going towards each other, both of us near Mach, and I spotted the F-18s low and to the left, and I called sight, and I lit the afterburners and turned hard into them for the intercept, and both of my engines, just exactly as the flight manual says they will, flamed out at 35,000 feet. And so now I am a fighter with, and I'm a glider at the same time. I'm gliding down from 35,000 feet down. I rocked the wings to have my wingman join in on me. He got in just in time before we hit the weather, and I'm flying off of a battery-operated standby attitude indicator about that big between my knees and a standby altimeter, waiting to get down to 25,000 feet so I can push the start button, because the engines won't start above 25,000 feet. So I had from 30,000 feet down to 25,000 feet to think about how complacent I was about that little restriction in the flight manual about using afterburners and heavy maneuvering at 35,000 feet. Mm-hmm. When I got back on the ground, the engines both lit as they should. Got back on the ground. I had a private meeting with my operations officer, which wasn't pleasant. It was not a pleasant conversation.
So I guess another way to say that, maybe your fangs got ahead of you on that.
I thought it was just another intercept. It turned out to be a training maneuver, or a training flight and fighter as a glider.
Thanks for sharing that.
Sure.
Thanks for being on the program. I've really enjoyed your stories and your inputs, so appreciate having you on the program.
Thank you for having me.
Ladies and gentlemen, hope you enjoyed tonight's program and the other 2 sessions with Keith. Until next time, fly safe, and don't forget to renew your membership for 2016. That's the way we survive. Till then, fly safe.
Welcome back. Today's sea ice analysis looking something like this, and forecast for the next 5 days here. This area, the ice edge, forecast to expand southwestward 35 to 45 nautical miles, while the area from about here on down to Nunivak Island, that's going to push out to the southwest 20 to 30 nautical miles. And then from Nunivak Island all the way down and including Bristol Bay, look for things to expand 10 to 20 nautical miles again through Wednesday. So things will begin to approach St. Matthew Island here early and into the middle of next week. For the marine forecast, southerlies here 20 to 25 knots all along the southeast coast, seas 10 feet. Small craft advisories for Clarence Strait dropping to southeast 20 for Stevens Passage, even lighter winds in store for Lynn Canal, and that holds through Sunday. Southeasterlies at about 15 up in that area, but then small craft advisories here for the inside water areas 25 to 30 knots out of the southeast, southeast 30 knots on the south coast, southeast 20 to 30 there for the north coast. And for Prince William Sound, easterlies at 15, northeast 15 for northern Cook Inlet, and then winds gradually increasing here. You get into the small craft advisories, Shelikof Strait, Kamishak Bay, all of the North Gulf Coast and the Barrens. And then with that next system coming up, those southeast winds increase to 35 knots tomorrow afternoon there along the east side of Kodiak Island. And then those drop back a little bit south at about 30 knots. So we've got small craft advisories here for the North Gulf Coast, Barren Islands, Kodiak into Kamishak Bay, and southern Cook Inlet for 25 to 30 knot winds. Northern Cook Inlet northeast at 20. Bristol Bay northeast 25, and that extends along the north side of the Alaska Peninsula. East northeasterlies from Sitkinak to Cape Sarachev. And then lighter winds in the forecast for Bristol Bay and the Bering Sea side of the peninsula, just 15 knots, and then small craft advisories here from Sitkinak to Castle Cape to Cape Sarachev, easterlies around 20. For the eastern Aleutians, east-northeast at about 20 knots with 6 to 13-foot seas out in that area. Small craft advisory easterlies here for the central Aleutians, turning northeast out towards Shimei and Attu. For Sunday, easterlies 20 knots here from Adak on out to Shimei, and then north to northeast 20 to 25 knots here from Atka all the way back across the Fox Islands. For the southwest coast, northeast 20, brisk wind advisory St. Lawrence Island into the northern Bering Sea. Northeast 20, again heavy freezing spray over the northern Bering. And then northerlies to 20 for the Pribilofs on Sunday, 20 to 25 knot northeasterlies along the coast, and north 25 for St. Lawrence Island, again with heavy freezing spray. Eastern Arctic coast for tomorrow, east at 20, northeast for the central coast, and we've got some brisk wind advisories here for the western coast all the way down to Cape Thompson, just northeast 15 there from Wales to Point Hope. And then for Sunday, northerlies at about 20 for that area, but much lighter Cape Thompson to Cape Beaufort, east at 15. Brisk wind advisories here for the western, central, and eastern Arctic coast with the strongest winds occurring there on the east side. And for the forecast tonight, again, trough lifting northward here keeps showers in along the southeast coast, North Gulf Coast to southern Prince William Sound. Chance of showers back toward Kodiak, mostly Fognak Island and Kamishak Bay and Bristol Bay. Otherwise, variably cloudy, a few flurries there on the east side with the wind advisory still going for the Kobuk Valley north of Ambler. Winter weather advisory, wind chill advisory for the western Arctic coast. Wind chills to 55 below. That's good through tomorrow with those winds up to 25 miles per hour. Here's the next front bringing the gale force winds into Kodiak with an increase in the rain as well. Otherwise, scattered showers for the North Gulf Coast. Variably cloudy and mostly dry over the interior there, and just some scattered showers, and the wind's not too bad over the Aleutians and the Bering Sea. And for Sunday, could be a band of light snow there from the western Arctic coast all the way down to the Yukon Delta. That front washes out, but has enough moisture left for possible snow along the Alaska Range. Showery from the North Gulf Coast. Good night.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.